Judges, chapters 15 through 17. And it came to pass after a time, in the days of wheat harvest, that Samson visited his wife with a kid, and said, I will go in to my wife, even into the chamber. But her father did not suffer him to go in. And her father spoke, saying, I said that thou didst surely hate her, and I gave her to one of thy friends. Is not her younger sister better than she? Let her be to thee instead of her. And Samson said to them, Even for once I am guiltless with regard to the Philistines, in that I do mischief among them. And Samson went and caught 300 foxes, and took torches, and turned tail to tail, and put a torch between two tails, and fastened it. He set fire to the torches, and set the foxes into the corn of the Philistines. And everything was burnt from the threshing floor to the standing corn, and even to the vineyard and olives. And the Philistines said, Who has done these things? And they said, Samson, the son-in-law of Thamnite, because he has taken his wife, and given her to one of his friends. And the Philistines went up, and burnt her and her father's house with fire. And Samson said to them, Though you may have dealt thus with her, verily, I will be avenged of you, and afterwards I will cease. And he smote them leg on thigh with a great overthrow, and went down and dwelt in a cave of the rock Etam. And the Philistines went up and encamped in Judah, and spread themselves abroad in Lehi. And the men of Judah said, Why are ye come up against us? And the Philistines said, We are come to bind Samson, and do to him as he has done to us. And the 3,000 men of Judah went down to the hole of the rock Etam, and they said to Samson, Knowest thou not that the Philistines rule over us? And what is that thou hast done to us? And Samson said to them, As they did to me, so I have done to them. And they said to him, We are come down to bind thee to deliver thee into the hand of the Philistines. And Samson said to them, Swear to me that ye will not fall upon me yourselves. And they spoke to him, saying, Nay, but we will only bind thee fast, and deliver thee into their hand, and will by no means slay thee. And they bound him with 2 new ropes, and brought him from that rock. And they came to Lehi, and the Philistines shouted, and ran to meet him. And the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and the ropes that were upon his arms became as tow which is burnt with fire, and its bonds were consumed from off his hands. And he found the jawbone of an ass that had been cast away, and he put forth his hand and took it, and smote with it 1,000 men. And Samson said, With jawbone of an ass have I utterly destroyed them. For with the jawbone of an ass I have smitten 1,000 men. And it came to pass when he ceased speaking, that he cast the jawbone out of his hand, and he called that place the lifting of the jawbone. And he was very thirsty, and went before the Lord, and said, Thou hast been well pleased to grant this great deliverance by the hand of thy servant. And now shall I die for thirst, and fall into the hand of the uncircumcised? And God broke up in a hollow place in the jaw, and there came thence water, and he drank, and his spirit returned, and he revived. Therefore the name of the fountain was called the Well of the Invoker, which is in Lehi until this day. And he judged Israel in the days of the Philistines 20 years. And Samson went to Gaza, and saw there a harlot, and went into her. And it was reported to the Gazites, saying, Samson is come hither. And they have compassed him, and laid wait for him all night in the gate of the city. And they were quiet all the night, saying, Let us wait till the dawn appear, and we will slay him. And Samson slept till midnight, and rose up at midnight, and took hold of the doors of the gate of the city with the 2 posts, and lifted them up with the bar, and laid them on his shoulders. And he went up to the top of the mountain that is before Hebron, and laid them there. And it came to pass after this, that he loved a woman in Alsarach, and her name was Delilah. The princess of the Philistines came up to her, and said to her, Beguile him, and see wherein his great strength is, and wherewith we shall prevail against him, and bind him to humble him. And we will give thee each 1,100 pieces of silver. And Delilah said to Samson, Tell me, I pray thee, wherein is thy great strength, and wherewith thou shalt be bound that thou mayest be humbled? And Samson said to her, If they bind me with 7 moist cords that have not been spoiled, then shall I be weak, and be as one of ordinary men. And the princes of the Philistines brought to her 7 moist cords that had not been spoiled, and she bound him with them. And the liars in wait remained with her in the chamber. And she said to him, The Philistines are upon thee, Samson. And he broke the cords as if anyone should break a thread of tow when it has touched the fire, and his strength was not known. And Delilah said to Samson, Behold, thou hast cheated me, and told me lies. Now then, tell me wherewith thou shalt be bound. And he said to her, If they should bind me fast with new ropes, with which work has not been done, then shall be weak, and shall be as another man. And Delilah took new ropes, and bound him with them. And the liars in wait came out of the chamber. And she said, The Philistines are upon thee, Samson. and he broke them off his arms like a thread. And Delilah said to Samson, Behold, thou hast deceived me, and told me lies. Tell me, I entreat thee, wherewith thou mayest be bound. And he said to her, If thou shouldest weave the 7 locks of my head with the web, and shouldest fasten them with the pin to the ball, then shall I be weak as another man. And it came to pass when he was asleep, that Delilah took the 7 locks of his head, and wove them with the web, and fastened them with a pin to the wall. And she said, The Philistines are upon thee, Samson. And he woke out of his sleep, and carried away the pin of the web out of the wall. And Delilah said to Samson, How sayest thou, I love thee, when thy heart is not with me? This 3rd time thou hast deceived me, and hast not told me wherein is thy great strength. And it came to pass, as she pressed him sore with her words continually, and straitened him, that his spirit failed almost to death. Then he told her all his heart, and said to her, A razor has not come upon my head, because I have been a holy one of God from my mother's womb. If then I should be shaven, my strength will depart from me, and I shall be weak, and shall be as all other men. And Delilah saw that he told her all his heart, and she sent and called the princes of the Philistines, saying, Come up yet this once, for he has told me all his heart. And the chiefs of the Philistines went up to her, and brought the money in their hands. And Delilah made Samson sleep upon her knees, and she called a man, and he shaved the 7 locks of his head, and she began to humble him, and his strength departed from him. And Delilah said, The Philistines are upon thee, Samson. And he woke out of his sleep, and said, I will go out as at former times, and shake myself. And he knew not that the Lord was departed from him. When the Philistines took him, and put out his eyes, and brought him down to Gaza, and bound him with fetters of brass, and he ground in the prison house. And the hair of his head began to grow as before it was shaven. And the chiefs of the Philistines met to offer a great sacrifice to their god Dagon, and to make merry. And they said, God has given into our hand our enemy Samson. And the people saw him, and sang praises to their God. For our God, said they, has delivered into our hand our enemy, who wasted our land, and who multiplied our slain. And when their heart was merry, then they said, Call Samson out of the prison house, and let him play before us. And they called Samson out of the prison house, and he played before them, and they smote him with the palms of their hands, and set him between the pillars. And Samson said to the young men that held his hand, Suffer me to feel the pillars on which the house rests, and I will stay myself upon them. And the house was full of men and women, and there were all of the chiefs of the Philistines, and on the roof were about 3,000 men and women, looking at the sports of Samson. And Samson wept before the Lord, and said, O Lord, my Lord, remember me, I pray thee, and strengthen me. O God, yet this once, and I will requite one recompense to the Philistines for my 2 eyes. And Samson took hold of the 2 pillars of the house on which the house stood, and leaned on them, and laid hold of one with his right hand, and the other with his left. And Samson said, Let my life perish with the Philistines. And he bowed himself mightily. And the house fell upon the princes, and upon all the people that were in it. And the dead whom Samson slew in his death were more than those whom he slew in his life. And his brethren and his father's house went down, and they took him, and they went up and buried him between Sariah and Eshtaol, in the sepulchre of his father Manoah. And he judged Israel 20 years. And there was a man of Mount Ephraim, and his name was Micaias. And he said to his mother, The 1,100 pieces of silver which thou tookest to thyself, and about which thou cursed me, and spokest to my ears, behold, the silver is with me. I took it. And his mother said, Blessed be my son of the Lord. And he restored the 1,100 pieces of silver to his mother. And his mother said, I had wholly consecrated the money to the Lord out of my hand for my son, to make a graven and a molten image, and now I will restore it to thee. But he returned the silver to his mother, and his mother took 200 pieces of silver, and gave them to a silversmith, and he made it a graven and molten image. And it was in the house of Micaias. And the house of Micaias was to him the house of God. And he made an ephod and teraphim, and he consecrated one of his sons, and he became to him a priest. And in those days there was no king in Israel. Every man did that which was right in his own eyes. And there was a young man in Bethlehem, of the tribe of Judah, and he was a Levite, and he was sojourning there. And the man departed from Bethlehem, the city of Judah, to sojourn in whatever place he might find. And he came as far as Mount Ephraim, and to the house of Micaias to accomplish his journey. And Micaias said to him, Whence comest thou? And he said to him, I am a Levite of Bethlehem, Judah, and I go to sojourn in any place that I may find. And Micaias said to him, Dwell with me, and to be to me a father and a priest, and I will give thee 10 pieces of silver by the year, and a change of raiment, and thy living. And the Levite went and began to dwell with the man. and the young man was to him as one of his sons. And Micaiah consecrated the Levite, and he became to him a priest, and he was in the house of Micaiah. And Micaiah said, Now I know that the Lord will do me good, because a Levite has become my priest. Psalm 76, 77 in Hebrew, verses 10 through 20. And I said, Now I have begun. This is the change of the right hand of the Most High. I remember the works of the Lord, for I will remember thy wonders from the beginning. And I will meditate on all thy works, and I will consider thy doings. O God, thy way is in the sanctuary. Who is a great God as our God? Thou art the God that doest wonders. Thou hast made known thy power among the nations. Thou hast with thine arm redeemed thy people, the sons of Jacob and Joseph. Pause. The waters saw thee, O God. The waters saw thee, and feared, and the depths were troubled. There was an abundant sound of waters. The clouds uttered a voice, for thine arrows went abroad. The voice of thy thunder was abroad, and around thy lightnings appeared to the world. The earth trembled and quaked. Thy way is in the sea, and thy paths in many waters, and thy footsteps cannot be known. Thou didst guide thy people as sheep by the hand of Moses and Aaron. Proverbs, chapter 15, verse 33b through chapter 16, verse 5. All the works of the humble man are manifest with God, but the ungodly shall perish in an evil day. Every one that is proud in heart is unclean before God, and he that unjustly strikes hands with hand shall not be held guiltless. The beginning of a good way is to do justly, and it is more acceptable with God than to offer sacrifices. He that seeks the Lord shall find knowledge with righteousness, and they that rightly seek him shall find peace. All the works of the Lord are done with righteousness, and the ungodly man is kept for the evil day. The Holy Gospel according to St. Luke, chapter 5, verses 17 through 39. And it came to pass on a certain day, as he was teaching, that there were Pharisees and doctors of the law sitting by, which were come out of every town of Galilee and Judea and Jerusalem. And the power of the Lord was present to heal them. And behold, men brought in a bed a man which was taken with a palsy, and they sought means to bring him in, and to lay him before him. And when they could not find by what way they might bring him in, because of the multitude, they went upon the housetop, and let him down through the tiling with his couch into the midst before Jesus. And when he saw their faith, he said unto him, Man, thy sins are forgiven thee. And the scribes and the Pharisees began to reason, saying, Who is this which speaketh blasphemies? Who can forgive sins but God alone? But when Jesus perceived their thoughts, he answering said unto them, What reason ye in your hearts? Whether it is easier to say, Thy sins be forgiven thee, or to say, Rise up and walk? But that ye may know that the Son of Man hath power upon earth to forgive sins, he said unto the sick of the palsy, I say unto thee, Arise, and take up thy couch, and go into thine house. And immediately he rose up before them, and took up that whereon he lay, and departed to his own house, glorifying God. And they were all amazed, and they glorified God, and were filled with fear, saying, We have seen strange things today. And after these things he went forth, and saw a publican, named Levi, sitting at the receipt of custom. And he said unto him, Follow me. And he left all, rose up, and followed him. And Levi made him a great feast in his own house. And there was a great company of publicans, and of others that sat down with them. But their scribes and Pharisees murmured against his disciples, saying, Why do ye eat and drink with publicans and sinners? And Jesus answering said unto them, They that are whole need not a physician, but they that are sick. I came not to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. And they said unto him, Why do the disciples of John fast often, and make prayers, and likewise the disciples of the Pharisees? But thine eat and drink. And he said unto them, Can ye make the children of the bride chamber fast, while the bridegroom is with them? But the days will come, when the bridegroom shall be taken away from them, and then they shall fast in those days. And he spake also a parable unto them. No man putteth a piece of a new garment upon an old. If otherwise, then both the new maketh a rent, and the piece that was taken out of the new agreeth not with the old. And no man putteth new wine into old bottles, else the new wine will burst the bottles, and be spilled, and the bottles shall perish. But new wine must be put into new bottles, and both are preserved. No man also having drunk old wine straightway desireth new, for he saith, The old is better.